My mind wasn't made up as to what I would do until I found myself in the Republican group. So I took part in the Civil War as a Republican.
Sean Harling, who could not make up his mind. Amongst those killed in the awful Civil War was Michael Collins.
We felt stunned. We felt lost without a leader. We felt that the country had got the worst blow any country ever got.
Oh, it was the end of the world for me. I couldn't believe it. That alone was, it was the worst disaster that had happened to our country up to then.
I was awakened in the early hours of the morning, sometime around 7 o'clock, as far as I remember. And I nearly fell, actually, because not alone was he one of my commanders, but he was a very old friend at that time. And I felt a sense of desolation because he was the dynamic force behind everything that had happened all during the periods 1920, 21. And I felt terribly depressed. I couldn't see who could step into his shoes. And I could foresee divisions arising out of his going. In fact, before he went to Cork, I met him and I told him I thought he was very foolish to go down there. And his answer was, nobody's going to shoot me in my own county.
I saw a most remarkable thing. There was 1,000 of us, 1,000 prisoners in Kilmainham jail. And I was in one of the top cells with Oscar Traynor, who was OC the Dublin Brigade at the time. And there was 2 and 3 to the cell. We heard the hubbub outside. And we walked out, and if you were ever in a prison, I suppose you were, if ever you were a jailbird, you know that there are places where the wires right across to prevent poor devils of prisoners from jumping down and finishing it all quick. But I looked down, and I saw a most remarkable sight. There was about 700 or 800 men, and they all down on their knees, and they sing the rosary for the repose of the soul of Michael Collins. One time, he was their leader against the British. Then he was the commander-in-chief of the enemy forces.
Where were you, sir, when you heard about the death of Michael Collins?
I was ill that week. I was in bed, and when I heard the news,
Can I ask you, Mr. Walton, looking back, where all this suffering and service, where do you hope that it will take Ireland in the future?
all you can do is hope that we'll have sense enough to build a nation, and courage and determination, and all the other virtues or requisites that are required for that.
there is only one thing I hope for Ireland, and that is that some agreement will be made between our people in the north and ourselves. And I hope the British government, who have the more power than anybody else to help in this situation, will come out as soon as possible and try and bridge the gap that is there. I think it's their duty. They inflicted this on the country. I believe that there is goodwill enough among the British people for it. And I know that in the Irish people, that the big majority of the people want peace and progress, and that there is no such thing as an anti-British feeling here. The only feeling we have is that the leaders of British public opinion can still learn the lesson that history should have taught them by this.
I'd like to see an Irish government running the whole country. I don't know how that will come about, but it's my fervent prayer that the shooting and the murders will lay down, and that acts of violence will lay down, because acts of violence generate one another. When you shoot somebody tonight and his pal shoots you tomorrow night, that goes on secular. I hope to God and I pray to God every night that I'll see the end of that.
What role?
Terrible.
What role do you see, David, for the Protestants in the northeast in a united Ireland?
The Protestants were always good citizens here. When we set up our own state here, the best citizens were the Protestants. They were law-abiding people and now still are. And I think they should get a fair hunt, even though they're a minority. They should get a fair hunt, and they will get it from any native government. They have no hope other than that. There's stagnation up there and murder and ructions and shooting and killing women and everything else. I can see no end to that. It's a hopeless business. I hope to God the day will come when every side will have a bit of sense, the IRA and the UDF and the rest of them. They'll settle down, be reconciled to each other, and we're all children of the human race after all. It's really a terrible state of affairs in the 20th century. See mines going off and millions of pounds thrown down the drain for no good. I can see no end to it. I think the British will have to pull out of it, and if they have any sense they will too, because there's nothing to be got for England in it. Nothing.
I never make any distinction between a man, what a man's religion is. I meet them on their own terms. I like to judge a man as I meet him. And religion never enters into it. And in these days now, when religious attitudes all around are changing, I don't think there's any great difference between us all.
Yes, because Protestants were the beginning of our democracy. They were beginning of our peace movement. You had Wolfe Tone and the United Irishmen. And Wolfe Tone, a Protestant, well, he was the first Protestant who sat down among Catholics to work towards their emancipation. We can never forget, we have a debt to Protestants and they to us. And I'm very confident that if there was a withdrawal, there would be no bloodbath. It's the presence of the British and their intrigues which makes sure that this evil will continue.
And if you go all through our history for the last, let's call it 200 years, there have been some wonderful Protestants. Thomas Davis, the man that I quoted to you there, was a Protestant. Wolfe Tone. Parnell, the man who went before Parnell, Shaw, a completely forgotten man. Isaac Butt, the founder of the Home Rule business. Come down again, Roger Casement, Erskine Childers, all the whole lot. There were any amount of good Protestants. I think in our little company in 1916 there were 4 Protestants who went out.
Fighting for the emancipation of Ireland.
Yes, fighting, yes, and the volunteers.
Well, I would hope that they would accept citizenship of Ireland under an Irish government in a united Ireland. They're a fine people. and they would be very valuable in building up of the whole nation.
Well, Kenneth, I'm an old man, I'm in my 80th year, and I don't like pontificating. But I'm as sure as I'm sitting here facing you that we'll never have peace amongst the 6 county people or between Britain and Ireland until the British Army of Occupation is removed from our island. I'm positive of that. It may now, this thing that's going on may fail, it may fizzle out, it may be patched up, I do not know, because I have nothing to do with things as they stand. And I believe all men should stand aside and let it to the people who are responsible. But I'm as positive as day follows night, and night follows day, and that rivers flow, that you'll never have peace in this country until the British Army and its administration in the 6 counties is shifted. And I see the danger there of sectarian warfare. But I believe that both Catholic and Protestant in the north, if the British were out of the way, you may have isolated incidents of madmen, as you will always have. But I have sufficient faith in the good sense of my fellow countrymen in the north that people will settle down and they'll end this sectarian killing. You may have some of it, but in the long run, it will be the one hope for the Irish people.